I am so excited to be joined today by one of my very good friends, Marisa Corcoran. We met, geez, I don't know, many, many years ago through Laura Belgray and her Shrimp Club. And I wanted to talk to her today because, first of all, she's a genius copywriter, a genius online business person. And I just wanted to share her brain with my audience. And let me give you a little background on Marisa. Ready to discover what to say and how to say it magnetically to attract your dream clients, then you need Marisa in your corner. In addition to writing the words that get landing pages converting at 60% or higher and crafting personality filled emails, she helps coaches and creatives craft their uncopyable message inside her signature program, the Copy Confidence Society. She's also the creator of the wildly popular summit, the Copy Chat, which has raised over $120,000 for organizations like Soulfire Farm, the Headstrong Project, and Sage USA. When not click-clacking on her laptop on her All-American road trip, you can find this Harvard grad analyzing a Real Housewives episode like it's government policy and consuming inappropriate amounts of nutrageous candy bars. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh my gosh, Michelle, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you, with anyone who is watching this now or in the future. I'm so glad to be here with you. It's so funny. Been thinking about changing the end of the bio to just Snickers bars because I love Snickers too. Because sometimes when I'm on a podcast or something, people are like, "What's a nutrageous candy bar?" Like people don't know it as well. And
Oh,
to me, it's like when I see one, it's like an omen. It's like a sign from above. But lately there's been a bunch of podcasts and stuff I've been on where people are like, "Hey, can I just ask you a question before we start? Like, how do I make sure I say your name correctly?"
yeah.
And then they'll go, "What is a nutrageous candy bar?" And I'm like, "Oh, I want to send you one." It's amazing. So I'm
It's
glad that
funny.
you know what one is.
It's
Thank
funny
you.
to think about the reference points that we have. That's one of the things that if you think about your copy and your bio, you always want to have one little thing that kind of triggers something. People are like, "Ooh, that's kind of interesting," right? I think
Right.
mine is and I need to update mine. It's that I'm a Peloton fanatic and I'm always trying to find new green spots on Google Maps. So it's like trying to
Love
find
it.
that one thing that's interesting, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And of course I know that you're a Peloton fanatic because like when I wasn't on my road trip, it's been hard on the trip to keep up with Peloton, which I'm sad about, but I miss it. I miss it when I'm back in one place. Right now I'm in upstate New York. I'm at my mom's, and as I was joking with you, this is the only space in this house where the background isn't a giant photo of me. So I'm doing the best I can with my background while traveling.
It's totally great. It's totally great. And actually, I've moved on from Peloton. Now I use the Ladder app. So
Oh,
we shift and
we're gonna have to
change.
talk about that. I
I
know we
know.
shift and change,
We shift and change.
Amen. We shift and change. So true.
I wanted to talk to you today because of all shifts and changes. And one place that I think is so useful for folks to focus on, we're both obsessed with email marketing and talking about welcome sequences. So this is something I get asked a lot about when people are reading my newsletter or reading my blog posts. They're like, well, do I need a welcome sequence? What's in it? People get so stressed out about the welcome sequence, which is why I really wanted to just get inside your brain about it and kind of figure out like, how can we help people with this thing? Because I know they work, they work. So I just want to pick your brain. So if
Love
you're
it.
open to it, we'll
Oh my
dive
God.
right in.
Let's do it.
You've worked with hundreds and thousands of folks on their copy, both in your programs and your Facebook groups and your master classes. What do you think is holding people back from just creating a basic welcome sequence?
This is such a great question. What I've seen from people is, oh my gosh. And I even felt this when I was creating my own welcome sequence. So I don't want you to feel that just because like, oh, well, Marisa, this is something that you're good at, so it's going to be easy for you. No, this was something that I think we all feel like, oh my gosh, I have to put this thing together. And there's like so many parts, and it's got to be more than one email. It's this whole sequence. It can feel overwhelming. It's the first email that people are going to read from me. Like it's the first thing they're going to see. There's this like, we want to make that great first impression that it can often stop us from putting something out there. I feel like that's the first thing. And then knowing like, what exactly do I include? And then that will sometimes halt us to be like, okay, well, I don't know exactly what to include, or I want this to be perfect. I feel like it's a mix of I want to make this great first impression. So that feels a little bit overwhelming. And what exactly do I put in this thing? And I
Mhm.
think that stops most people from creating one.
I love that. You know, it's that overwhelm. I remember I have a really genius client, and she didn't want to add one, didn't want to add one. And because again, it was that overwhelm of like, well, it's got to be 5 perfect emails. I'm like, start with one. You can start with one. You know, there's just an expectation of someone signs up with you. They're super excited about what you have to say. And if they've got to wait a week or two, or whatever your normal emailing sequence is, you might lose them in that time period, or they'll forget about you because they're down some other rabbit hole.
Yep.
So, let's start with the basics. What is the first thing that you would add to a welcome sequence?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I so agree with you, Michelle, that I tell people if you just start with one email,
Mm,
somebody gets onto your email list through a lead magnet, through whatever way they find their way there. If there's one email that welcomes them, and we can talk about that, you are light years ahead of
mm,
so many people who are not doing that. And people will remember that you did that. So I talk
mm,
about this all the time inside of the Copy Confidence Society. We have a whole module devoted to
mm,
your welcome sequence. And I say, and we talk about 4 emails to get started with. But I tell people, even if you don't do those 4, do the one.
mm,
The one will make such a difference. So I love that you agree with that. And the very first thing is that when somebody joins the email list, we want to make sure that we're delivering what we said they're going to get. So
mm,
if they're coming in through a lead magnet, so I'll use myself as an example. A lot of times we will bring people in through, I call it an ordinary time. I was raised Catholic, so when we're not like when we're not like promoting something, I have this tendency to call it ordinary time to my team. And they're like, what is this? I'm like, oh, it's a Catholic thing when it's not like Lent or Advent or whatever. So in ordinary time, people usually find their way to us through the 50+ scroll stopping subject lines, a lead magnet that I
mm,
have. So then that first email, you want to make sure that you're delivering that lead magnet, that you're delivering what it says that you promised them. And I like to do 2 other things in there. I like to give them one other place, one other platform to not every platform I'm on.
mm,
So the tendency that I'll see in a first walk, I was like, follow me here, find me here,
mm,
do this, do this. It's like, whoa, I just got here. When you go on a date with somebody, you're like, okay, could I just like order an appetizer? Can we just like chill? That's how you want to think about it. Like, how can we like really move this relationship forward in a way that feels like easeful? So it's like,
mm,
okay, deliver the thing you said you promised, and then give them one other kind of place to go. So I talk about, the place that I want people to go. And this one is to my Instagram. So
mhm,
I will talk about how you can follow me on Instagram and why you should not just follow me, but I
mhm,
give them like a post or 2 that I think could be really impactful for them. And
mhm,
then the final thing that I want to make sure in that first email is that my emails show up in their inbox, that they don't go to spam. So I will explicitly tell them to hit reply, and I even give them like something to copy and paste.
mm,
I say like, I want you to receive these emails, spam is worse, and I give like a joke about is worse than, in Batman Returns when the penguin bites that guy's nose off. Like I give some funny like movie reference because I was and am still terrified of Batman Returns. And I say, I'll even give you exactly what to say. Hey, Marisa, got this email. Can't wait to swipe the rest of them soon. And
mm,
so when I do that, people find their way either to my Instagram, or people will hit reply and copy and paste that. At least every week, I'm replying to a handful of, hey, Marisa, okay,
mhm,
I'm doing the thing you said. And then I make it a point to respond back to those people 100% because I want to make sure I respond back to them. So if you do nothing else,
mm,
deliver that first email, deliver what you promised on, give people another platform or a place to find you, and like through like that kind of introduction to who you are, and really focus on how you could get them to hit reply so that your emails are less likely to kind of go into their
mhm.
spam.
Oh, there's so much genius here. And one thing I really want to highlight is that email reply. So this is a metric. It's not really measurable. I mean, it kind of is, but it's not, you're never going to see it in like your ConvertKit reports. But Ann Handley talks about this a lot. If you're not following Ann Handley, make sure that you do.
Stop right
Genius
now,
newsletter. Stop right now. Go.
pause this right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
and go find Nan
Go find.
Hanley
I'll put her link. Um,
and do it.
and do it. I'm blessed that she's a client of mine as well, so
Ah,
I get to tap into her
obsessed.
brain.
I love Ann Hanley.
Um, but one of the things that she always talks about is that email reply back
Yep.
metric. And so, it is training folks, training their inbox. It's also training folks that this is a relationship. It's a two-sided relationship. And so I really, really love that because it's, you can start to cultivate folks, and you can have a relationship starting right then. And you don't know where that's going to lead. That's led to clients and projects for me just by replying to that welcome email. And the other thing that I want to highlight here is that now a lot of the services that we're using, like ConvertKit, like Beehive, have referral networks. And so I get a lot of people signing up through, for example, my yoga philosophy teacher, Hari Kirtan Das. So
Who I
like they'll
also
sign,
love.
right. He's great, fantastic writer. Get on his newsletter
One
too.
of
We'll
our
put,
fantastic. One of our comes to every copy chat.
he's amazing.
Love. Go
So,
on.
so great. And, he recommends my newsletter. And so what happens is they get the little pop-up. They say, you might also like, and so they might join my list. Well, they haven't been through my website. They may not know who I am. And so that welcome email really is that first introduction because they haven't had any other knowledge of me. And so I think that's really important too, is just to reiterate, like, who I am, here's how I can help you. And here's that thing, like you said, that I promised that I was going to give you. So those are all really, really important. If that's the only email you start with, great. I think
It's great.
we'd both be happy if
Oh my
everybody had
gosh.
that.
And that can be short and sweet. Like I even say, you do not want this email to be long. Again, we
Mhm.
don't want to overwhelm people. It's like, here's what I delivered. Here's
Mhm.
who I am. Here's another place that you could get some support with this if you
Yeah.
need it. Hit reply. And I think because we never have control over if people will buy from us,
Mm,
but I say we have control over the 3 R's that people will remember you, they'll rave
mm,
about you, and they'll refer you.
mm.
And this is a way to do that. When people hit reply, so every Friday, before I log off for the day, I go through all of those responses and I send a quick response back
That's great.
to those people. And I say,
Yeah.
oh my, like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to have you part of our email community. Let me know which subject lines, formulas are most beneficial for you. Like, excited to have you here, XOM,
Mhm.
like simple to all of those people. Sometimes I send a video back,
Mhm.
um, and just start that relationship from those replies.
That alone, I will tell you, I mentor a lot of folks, web designers, people starting online businesses. I'm like, just taking that little extra effort in a world where everything's automated and where you think there aren't real people behind the screens, taking that extra effort to be like, hey, person name, thanks so much. Just to acknowledge people is huge
Yep.
and will develop that loyalty.
It's so true. It
So
really will. It really makes a difference.
well, I would love to know just a few more things about welcome
Yeah.
sequences, what you found. So, what's the most surprising thing that you've seen work inside of a welcome sequence?
Yeah. The most surprising thing that I have seen work is two things. The second email, and I learned this from Laura Belgray, is having that second email, it doesn't have to be a second email, but this is where I put it in the sequence,
Mhm.
is this kind of like quote unquote like fun facts email. And
Mm,
it is a mix of, there are some straight fun facts in there where I talk about, hey, my name is Marisa and not Marissa, right?
mhm,
There's some straight fun facts in there. But the other facts are like these credibility facts. It's
mhm.
like it's me seeding in. Like one of them is like, oh, in 2019, I say like in 2019, I had a baby and I put like, sorry, mom, a list baby. I grew my audience from, 90 people to 5,000 people through our wildly popular copy chat. It's still one of the most raved about summits online. Like those are some of the facts, or where I'm like seeding in the Copy Confidence Society or my own credibility through these facts, but it's mixed with ones where I'm also like, Laura talks about like flaunting like your flawsome, like your
Mhm.
flaws or things that, so I have one where I talk about how like I suck at number idioms. I don't understand like, and I give examples like I can't even, I don't understand like 6 to 1 is half dozen to an, I can't, I always say it wrong. Two birds in a bush somewhere is equal to like, I'm just not good at it. So I like bullet point all the ones that I have literally in
Yeah,
front of people totally butchered, and people look at me like, that's,
yeah.
no, that's a dime a dozen. Like I never, and people like, that's not the saying. That's not what it is. I'm like, oh, it's not. So there's some things where I'm kind of like talking about my own thing. I talk about how Housewives is like my version of my grandmother's soap operas,
Yeah.
and it's mixed with these credibility back as well, where I talk about the Copy Confidence Society. I say, hey, we've supported over 800 business owners. Like, here's an example from 2 people. Um, and I get so many replies to this email
Mm,
where people are either citing something, oh my gosh, people always
mhm.
say my name wrong, or oh my gosh, I'm bad at this thing too, or I love Real Housewives, or people will write back and list their own facts to me.
Mm.
They'll list their own things. And then
Wow.
I love to write them back and be like, oh my gosh, you just wrote the second email in your own welcome sequence.
I
Go
love
use
it.
this. So I'm always surprised by how well that email works and how much it showcases. So I always say people make purchasing decisions based on two things. One is what you're selling, something that I want or I need. That's your messaging. So making sure that I have those little credibility pieces throughout.
Mhm.
And number two, are you the person that I want to do it with? Do I get a
Mm.
sense of your voice, your vibe, your personality? And so having those other things in there really makes a difference and makes it pop. And that email like does both. It
Oh.
makes it clear how I can help you and it gives you a taste of who I am. So
Mm.
that's the thing that surprised me the most. And the other thing that's really surprised me, and it's not that it surprised me because I always say like, storytelling is our oldest form of communication. Dates back to the Chauvet caves 30,000 years ago. This is the way that we've communicate in the way uh, and so the other thing that has surprised me is that an email I've had in there from like the very beginning is an email about my grandfather where I talk about the banana the banana milkshakes business model, where I talk about the relationship between my grandfather and I. And it is so wild the people who will respond to that. And I talk about like when people talk about like the why they did their business, like that email, I think being able to put that into a story and talk about the relationship with my grandfather. And one of the reasons in the beginning of my business was so that I could come home every August and spend that time with my grandfather. And it's always like, again, these beautiful responses that I get by sharing this story about him kind of later on in the sequence.
Mm. Oh man. So first off, we're both huge fans of storytelling. I mean, as Marie Forleo always says, like facts tell, stories sell, right? And I know for myself, like I used to dread writing my newsletter. Like when I started my newsletter many years ago, it was more of like, oh, I got to talk about tech or whatever. And when I started incorporating the storytelling, that's really when I'm like, now I'm like in the shower, like, oh, that's a nugget. That's a nugget. I'm saving all of these story nuggets that I can share and then transition. And that's what people respond to. And I can't tell you how many folks are like, yours is one of the only ones that I read every week. I always save them. I look forward to them. And to me, that tells me I'm hitting on something. And it's interesting because I've become a little bit more active on Threads and I'm seeing a little bit of backlash against the storytelling because I think it's become a popular kind of medium and some stories can get quite verbose. There's a couple newsletters I'm on where I'm like, just get to the point already, right? So
Right.
I think we do have to balance, but that connection, I mean, that's what we're just trying to do anyway. Most of us are personality driven brands or it's our name on the moniker, right? That's what we're doing and we're connecting. And I think that idea of like, I'm going to share, my story, even though it may feel old to me, I think that's another great point is like, oh, this old email, but how many billions of people are in the world who haven't heard this story yet,
Yeah, it's
And
still in there from the beginning. And I updated it when my grandfather died.
mm,
So people read the email and then the PS is where I say, if you're reading this,
yeah,
this is an email that I originally did then.
yeah.
And, my grandfather, died in August of actually today. It's the time of
Oh,
this recording. My grandfather died August
oh my goodness.
exactly today, 3 years ago. So I have that in the
Mm,
PS of that it's so beautiful, the people who respond to it.
mm.
This also has nothing to do with online business at all, but it
It's
also
okay.
keeps his like him
Yeah,
alive, and that's really important to me. Like I always say, if you're a fan of the Disney movie Coco, they talk about like how do you keep someone on the like
yeah.
in the when Miguel crosses over, he realizes that you have to like keep people on the ofrenda in order for them and the
Mm,
in the other world to kind of
yeah.
stay alive. And it's like, okay, so how do I keep my grandpa on the ofrenda? Like how do I keep talking about him and bringing that in? That's so core to who I am and what the
Mm,
business is all about. So for me, it makes sense to have that. And
mhm,
again, I'm with you, this is not a super in the Copy Confidence Society, we have a whole storytelling
mm,
training on how you can still make that connection and have like succinct stories. So again,
mhm,
this is not like a super long story either, but just having those connection points. I'm
mm.
always I'm always like, "Oh yeah, these two emails work really
Yeah.
well inside of the sequence."
Oh, I love all of that. And, there's just some humanity to it.
Yeah.
I think for so long, we've run businesses that were like, do X to get Y result, and it's like, why
Yeah.
can't we be humans and actually have empathy for each other and
Yes.
share legacies? I mean, I lived with my grandmother lived with us for 12 years. She was a huge
Mm,
part of my growing up. And she comes into some of my stories. She
yeah.
didn't drive a car, she didn't go past the eighth grade. There's so many
Mm,
things that influence what I do and how I grew up and how I approach things. Sharing the things that make us who we are influences what we're creating. So
so
I
true.
love that you're able to incorporate that. Just hearing even that, I had a question like, well, how often do you update your welcome sequence? And I think there's a good point here of anything that's time sensitive or you've lost someone. I mean, I used to write about my dog a lot and, unfortunately I lost him a couple of years ago. I know
Same.
you lost
I haven't
Jake.
updated
So,
I haven't updated Jake in anything yet. So if you're out there and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to put something in because it'll like, listen,
yeah.
Jake died in November. We're talking about this in August. I
Yeah.
have not changed it yet. And he is the beginning of the fun facts email. I
Oh,
talk about him and people will respond and send me pictures of their own dog. And
oh
that's
yeah.
when I tell them, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Jake crossed the Rainbow Bridge back in November. And it's
Yeah.
like, I'm just not ready to move him around yet.
Yeah.
And I also just want to tell you, like, so if you're like, gosh, I don't know if I could put that in because what if that changes or what if that, like,
Yeah.
first off, don't dress for her disaster. And number two, you
Mm,
can always shift things or not. Like,
yeah.
I haven't changed Jake yet, and
Yeah.
everybody's fine. It's okay.
It's going to be
You know?
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. I know for myself, I tweaked the last email in my welcome sequence. I have a little section with how you can work with me right now.
Yep.
And so it's more of the time sensitive stuff. So that's something I'll look at every month just to
Yeah.
update. But the general
Agreed.
sequence, I might just go and revisit every couple of months,
Yeah.
just to tweak things, maybe add some new elements. I know I'm always testing stuff out to segment folks, what people are interested in. So
Yep.
again, know that you don't have to start with that, but it's something that you can revise and refine over time. It's
Yeah.
more important to
You really
get
can.
something going.
You
Yeah.
can revise and refine. And I tell people in the society, like, even if you check in on this once a year, and something that I always tell people.
Mm,
So I actually just did a VIP day in New York City with someone around this where we did their whole welcome sequence.
mm,
It was, it
mm.
was like the most jazz day.
Yeah.
And something that we realized, which I talk about in the society all the time, is that only two of these emails, and we did like a whole Zoom agrees with me. Okay, the balloons, only like two of them,
Yeah.
all the other ones came from things that he had already written. So a
Mm,
lot of times people are like, "Oh my gosh, I have to write all brand new content for the welcome sequence." It's like, "No, I'd already written the banana milkshakes business model. It's just
mhm.
that people love that email so much. I'm like, "Oh, that's got to go in the welcome sequence." Or
Genius.
I took a post from President Biden like on Instagram and I rewrote it. I call it copy edits for Joe Biden. People love that email. So when I was reviewing my email, I'm like, "Oh, we got to put this in the welcome sequence."
So
So
smart.
when I was doing the VIP day for this person, we were just going through social posts that had like
Mm,
great response or this, or we were looking at emails and I'm like, oh, this should be it. This should be it. And we literally of the sequence we created for him, and we created like 7, 8 emails,
yeah.
only two of them had to
We're
be
new.
quote unquote written from scratch. And even then, we were just pulling from
Mm,
like ideas. So just remember, it's likely that you already have written what could go into your welcome sequence. So I say, like, even every year, go back and review. Oh my
mhm.
gosh, this worked really well. This worked really well. And could you add to the welcome sequence? Maybe make it a bit longer or take an email out and sub this email in. So that's what we talk about in the society, how to evaluate at the end of the year if you're a little bit of a newer business owner. And then, of course, as you get more advanced, we can talk about segmenting and expanding
Mhm.
it. But even just looking at things that you've already
Oh yeah.
written or done, or there's a podcast interview you were on that went really well. Okay, let's put that into the welcome sequence. It's
Yeah.
likely you already have this created and you don't have to do the welcome sequence from scratch.
I love this. You know, something to consider. And I want people to think about this when you're crafting your content. I write in Evernote. You can write in whatever, but I like to keep my content in a couple of places. So I always have a backup. So I always can search my archive newsletters in my Evernote, but I can also inside of ConvertKit, you can create what are called internal notes. So you could use a classification system. If you come up with something, maybe it's about a particular launch or program or promotional offer. And one thing I'll do is I will internally note these things. So when I'm going back to maybe promote program again, or I've got a new offer, I can go back to my previous emails and look at what I've written, and I'll pretty much lift and blend what I've already done. So that reuse and recycle is, so many of us we're producing so much content it's okay, A, to repeat yourself. And also,
Yes.
you're going to find new nuggets. You're going to find new ways to kind of spin stuff. And I always find it so much easier to start with something than from a blank page. I always
Yeah.
tell folks when they ask me to design, I'm like, can you give me some reference points? Because like a blank screen is not it. I need
Yeah.
something to sink my teeth into.
Yeah. And most of the time I tell people like, you have all of this
Yeah.
already. We're just going to go and kind of organize it together.
Awesome. Thank you so, so much for sharing your wisdom with my audience today. How can they work with you in upcoming programs? What do you got going on?
Yeah.
What can we share with them?
Yeah. So inside the Copy Confidence Society, we support you, as we kind of talked about, to craft, first off, like that messaging. I always say, we talked about people make purchasing decisions based on two things. And that first one is what you're selling, something that I want or I need. So making sure that like how you talk about what you do is clear, it's specific, and then supporting you with the copy, that kind of personality filled copy that dazzles, so you can call in more of your dream clients. That's what we do inside of the society. We cover everything from websites, launch emails, welcome sequences, lead magnets, and we also cover that around your messaging, the work of the ideal client, all of that. And we always kick the doors open to the Copy Confidence Society with a special copy class. We call it the Leave Them Wanting More Masterclass, the three-part framework to whip up irresistible copy with creativity and chutzpah. And we talk a bit more about how to bring some more of that personality into your copy, how to make sure that that messaging is super specific. We do it with a little help from the Ghostbusters, because I always say the Ghostbusters have the most perfect messaging. And so this is a great class to kind of, first off, you know, if you're launching or you're writing emails or anything like this, the foundation of this you can implement ASAP
Mm.
into your emails and your social posts. And so I say, you know, in the class I will, you know, offer you an opportunity to join the Copy Confidence Society, because I believe so strongly in what we've created. But whether or not you choose to join the society, I know you'll walk away feeling like a more confident content creator for your business. And the class isn't pre-recorded, it's live with me. I always offer, when we're doing it, 3 dates and times. I would say it's like Broadway, choose which show you're coming to, I'll be there. But it's live with me. I stay on to answer all your questions. It's really important to me in a world where everything is kind of like AI or pre-recorded to
Mm.
like show up and support you with this, because copy is, yes, it's marketing, but it's such a creative process
Mm.
too. So how can I be there to answer all your questions? So we make sure that happens. And yeah, I would absolutely love to have you there, and kind of keep supporting you to kind of add some of the personality now to the welcome sequence and make sure your messaging is super strong as well.
This is fantastic. And I just want to share with my audience, like, you know, I only share stuff that I know I've been part of. I know that they show up. What year is this now on? Is the
This
ninth
is
round
No,
of,
this is at the time of this recording, we
yeah,
are currently in, we're launching the site for the 12th time. And actually, I
unbelievable.
did an email only, like a little email only
Yeah.
launch. So technically, this is the 13th time, but really, if I'm going off of when we normally open, this is the 12th time we've launched the Copy Confidence Society.
So I just want to share that I think that your group, your support group, is one of the nicest places on the internet.
That's
I've been
great.
around. I have been around. I've been
You
part of
have.
many groups, many programs, many offers. Marisa shows up. The people are lovely. You get support that I really have not seen a level of support in many other programs like this. So I am giving my stamp of approval, because I know it, even if you just go to her masterclass, you're going to come away with something tangible and something that you can implement. And so
Mhm.
I wholeheartedly believe in what you're doing, how you show up. And I will tell you, the people that have joined your program who have come through me are like, oh my God, this was like the best. I got so much support. I can't believe it. Thank you so much. So I just want to share that with you,
Oh,
because
I
I
love
get
that.
that feedback. I have never heard a bad thing about your program. And in fact, people come, they're like so grateful that they have someone where they can like, oh my, I got all my copy, like, and even beyond copy, because obviously you're running a very successful online business. So I just want to say thank you for taking care of the folks that I do send your way, because they come back and they're super grateful.
Oh, I love that, Michelle. I always say, you know, I've said this to you because when you mentioned me when we were at the Shrimp Club retreat back in
Yeah.
April, I said this to you, like the best people come from you. Like we'll sit on team meeting and I'm like, you know, I'm loving this round, so and so, and then Hosanna from my team or someone they'll be like, oh, you know, they came from Michelle. I'm like, of course they came from Michelle.
I'm good
Just like
people.
the best people. I'm
Good
like, you
people.
know, I'm loving this. Oh my God, wasn't that copy so great that we edited? They put it out there and look,
Yeah.
somebody responded. Isn't that so great? And they're like, that person came from Michelle. I'm like, of course they did. So it's just like a perfect combo. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, it really means, so I always say like copy's like water for your business. It's
Mm,
never going out of style. And so being able to give you a place like where you can always have that support
mm.
as you're implementing it, whether you're in, we have many people where they're in a business coaching program, they're learning a specific strategy. So we really like the society is such a beautiful complement to that because you're always going to need that copy to support it. So I just love being able to kind of offer that because it can only strengthen the other things that you're doing. So
Oh,
I
it's
love
so
it. Thank you
beautiful.
so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your time with us today. I will make sure to share all of the links, that we talked about in the show notes, as well as any emails that I'll be sending out. So thank you so much. I'm so appreciative and I'm glad to be your friend.
Thanks, Michelle. Same, ditto.
Thanks so much.